Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. If the backdrop behind me looks a little different today, there's a reason. Some of you may have already guessed it. Tonight I'm coming to you from Tianjin in China, a city whose very name means the ford of heaven. Legends have it that it was named by an emperor after he crossed a river here on his way to seize power. And Tianjin has always been a place of unusual stories. It was once home to 9 foreign concessions, meaning 9 territories leased to 9 different foreign powers. The Europeans built their own schools, churches, and even prisons here on Chinese soil. This is also the city where China held its first democratic elections way back in 1907, and now, in 2025, the same city is hosting the SCO summit. From August 31st to September 1st, the summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and this one is a special one. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be here. It will be his first visit to China in 7 years, and we'll be here to bring you every update, every story from this important gathering. Also on the show tonight, the US is at it again with its good cop, bad cop routine. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro has called it Modi's war in Ukraine. We'll discuss the method in the madness. Also, why are European leaders suddenly in Moldova? Why has Denmark summoned the US envoy over claims of interference in Greenland? Why France is on the brink of yet another political crisis? How Nvidia earnings beat expectations but the stocks continue to plunge? And what is Turkey's steel dome air defense system? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Protesters throw rocks at Argentina's President Javier Milei while he was campaigning for the midterm elections in October. The incident took place near the capital. The Argentine leader was whisked away soon after and did not suffer any injuries. Milei is under fire over an alleged corruption scandal involving his sister. Mexican senators come to blows after a heated debate over alleged opposition calls for US military intervention. The opposition parties have denied the charge. This comes amid reports that Donald Trump has authorized the use of military force against Latin American drug cartels. Hungary and Ukraine trade public insults as their diplomatic row escalates. Kiev has been targeting Russian energy infrastructure, which has resulted in repeated oil supply disruptions in Hungary. Budapest has called it an attack on its sovereignty by Kiev, while Ukraine has accused Hungary of moral decay. Sweden and the Netherlands call for action against Israel and Hamas, urge the European Union to sanction them over the war in Gaza. This would include suspending the EU-Israel trade deal. The matter will be discussed at an EU foreign ministers meeting on Saturday. Hamas has already been banned by the bloc. And a first group of 7 migrants arrives in Rwanda as part of a deal to accept deportees from the US. The nationalities of the deportees have not been revealed. The Trump administration has defended these third country deportations, claiming that the home nations often refuse to accept them. Do you know what a good cop, bad cop routine is? One officer comes in red-faced, yelling, threatening, even pounding the desk. The other slips in behind him, calm, reassuring, offering a way out. The logic behind this is quite simple. This act will wear down the other side. They will crack and take the deal. And that's exactly what the US is trying to do here. It is testing India's resilience with tariffs, threats, and the odd conciliatory comments. Their bad cop is a man called Peter Navarro. He is the White House trade advisor. For weeks now, he's been targeting New Delhi for buying Russian oil, with each statement more ludicrous than the other. He now calls the war in Ukraine Modi's war. The good cop is Scott Bessent. He is the US Treasury Secretary. He is expressing optimism that India and the US will find a way to work together. And all of this is happening as America's 50% tariffs on India come into effect. Tonight, we'll decode these statements and look at what the US is trying to do. And we'll start with Peter Navarro. This time he has outdone himself. He says the war in Ukraine is Modi's war. Listen to this.
Everybody in America loses because of what India is doing. The consumers and businesses and everything lose. And workers lose because India's high tariffs cost us jobs, factories and income, and higher wages. And then the taxpayers lose because we got to fund Modi's war. I mean Modi's war because the road to peace runs, in part, through New Delhi.
It was Russia that launched the military offensive in 2022. It's the West that is providing weapons for the war, and it's Ukrainian soldiers who are on the front lines, yet by some twisted logic. For Peter Navarro, this is not Russia or Ukraine or Europe's war. This is Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's war. And if you thought this was provocative, there is more. Navarro says the road to peace in Ukraine runs through India. It runs through New Delhi, not Moscow. If India stops buying oil, Putin would run out of money faster and the war would end. At least this is Washington's argument. The same Washington that is itself chasing energy deals with Russia and rolling out the red carpet for Putin. The same Washington that refuses to tariff China, which is the biggest buyer of Russian oil. Also the same Washington that for the last 3 years encouraged India to buy Russian oil to stabilize the global markets. Now they're targeting India and calling Ukraine Modi's war. Guess Navarro missed the fine print, not to mention the facts. And speaking of China, he had some words for Beijing too. Listen to this.
India, you are getting in bed with authoritarians. China invaded Oxide Chin and all your territory. They are not your friends. And Russia? Come on.
Getting in bed with authoritarians. That's what Peter Navarro calls it. Of course, we know what he's hinting at. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to visit China. His first visit in 7 years. He will attend the SCO or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. This comes amid an India-China reset. And it's this reset that Navarro has described as getting in bed with authoritarians. Guess he hasn't heard his own president speak because Donald Trump cannot stop fawning over Kim Jong-un. He met Kim, the North Korean leader, thrice in his first term as president. And now he wants to meet him again. But sure, it is India that is cozying up to authoritarians. And if Navarro is the hammer, Bessent is the velvet glove. His tone couldn't have been more different. He admits that the relationship is tense, the India-US relationship. It's tense, but he insists that at the end of the day, Washington and New Delhi will, quote-unquote, come together.
There's many levels going on here. I do think India is the world's largest democracy. The US is the world's largest economy. I think at the end of the day, we will come together.
The subtext is clear. Navarro can call names, Trump can slap tariffs, but the United States still needs India. As the world's biggest democracy, India remains Washington's hedge against China. It's a conciliatory message aimed at calming markets and also at keeping back channels open. And it's a game that India has played longer than Trump's team imagines. On the surface, it looks like confusion, even chronic dysfunction in the White House, but dig deeper and you will see the strategy. They're trying to push India hard enough to extract trade concessions while also pressuring it to cut ties with Moscow. The bad cop, Navarro, fuels fears of isolation and punishment. The good cop, Bessent, shows hope and offers a way out through cooperation, trade deals and partnership. But here's the problem. Like I said, India has seen this movie before. The faces change, the threats change, the promises change, but the script remains the same. For decades, Washington has tried this playbook and India has remained committed to its own interests. That won't change because of Trump's all caps and high decibels. New Delhi will not choose what suits America or Russia or China. It will choose what is best for the people of India. Clearly, this is a full-blown trade war. Investment bank Nomura has likened Trump's trade tariffs to a trade embargo. Some exporters who are directly hit by the tariffs are calling them an earthquake. And going by the tough talk from Washington, the picture is unlikely to improve anytime soon. So India's only option is to explore alternatives and build resilience. Tonight, we look at how India plans to do that. One part of it is talks. Despite everything, that door is still open. India is still engaging with the US and working on a possible deal, but on its own terms. A deal that works for both countries and does not require New Delhi to succumb to Washington's demands. So that's one part. At the same time, India is also building alternatives. It is diversifying exports to new markets and trying to boost demand at home. Let's break it down for you, starting with the exports. India is pursuing new trade agreements. Fresh deals with Europe are at the center of this strategy. The agreement with the European Free Trade Association, or EFTA, takes effect from the 1st of October. 4 countries are part of this bloc: Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. Plus talks are on with the European Union as well. And a trade with the EU, a trade deal with Brussels, is expected by the end of 2025. Reports say talks have progressed smoothly so far, so New Delhi is optimistic. And why does this matter? Because the European bloc, the EFTA nations, the EU and the UK together form a big market. According to one assessment, they represent a $16 trillion economy. That's 1/3 of global trade. Access to these markets will cushion the blow from Trump's tariffs. It will allow Indian exporters to diversify and reduce their reliance on the US. And Indian officials are confident. They believe that these deals open up alternative markets. They create the space to divert exports and they help absorb some of the shock. Now let's talk about the second front, the domestic measures. The government plans to shake up GST, the goods and services tax, and we've been telling you about this on the show. Most rates will be cut to either 5 or 18%. 5% or 18%. Essential goods like food, textiles and cement will become cheaper. Luxury goods will remain expensive. The goal is to boost consumer spending and free up cash in the economy. Some support measures are also being planned for exporters. Reports say a multi-billion-dollar package is being assembled. The aim is to free up the working capital of these enterprises and help them survive the tariff shock. Looking at the big picture, these tariffs will not derail India's larger growth story. Global accounting giant EY, Ernst & Young, has released a report. It says Trump's tariffs could slash 0.9% of India's GDP. 0.9%, but this damage can still be contained. If India takes the right steps, the hit could be limited to just 0.1 percentage points. That's what the EY report says. And this is why New Delhi is moving fast. Alternative markets, lower GST relief packages. The idea is quite simple. Do not let tariffs derail India's growth story. Don't let them derail India's growth story. Yes, the tariffs are steep. They're designed to hurt. But India is boosting its resilience and trying to turn this trade shock into an opportunity. The countdown has begun. In 3 days from now, leaders from 20 nations will gather here in Tianjin for a summit of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It will be held at the Meijiang International Convention and Exhibition Center. It's a stone's throw away from where we are bringing you the show tonight. And this will be a significant one. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is attending in person. It's a high-profile engagement. This is Prime Minister Modi's first visit to China in 7 years, and it comes at a critical moment, not just for India, but the whole world. Trump's trade war is ripping through the global economy. He's waging battles with China, Russia and India, 3 countries that happen to be key members of the SCO. And this comes at a time when global conflicts remain far from resolution, from the war in Ukraine to the one in Gaza. No end in sight. And against this backdrop, this year's SCO becomes critical for India, an important platform to reaffirm its position on global issues. Prime Minister Modi's engagements in the coming days will be about consensus building. They also show India's strategic autonomy and multi-alignment. Because look at the schedule this week. The Prime Minister's schedule. He's heading to Japan tonight, which is a member of the Quad. And 2 days later, he will land here for the SCO. It shows how India works with different partners without being boxed into the Western concept of alliances. The visit to Japan is also the first of its kind in nearly 7 years. Prime Minister Modi's first standalone visit to Japan in this period, almost 7 years. There, he will hold his first summit with Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. India and Japan are 2 of Asia's leading democracies, 2 of the world's top 5 economies, and also partners in the Quad. Reports say Modi and Ishiba will travel to Sendai, the city known for its semiconductor industry, and they will go there by a bullet train. On their first ride together, the 2 leaders will explore Japan's role in India's future bullet train projects. Remember, Japan is already involved in a bullet train project on the Mumbai-Ahmedabad route. India is looking to explore more such projects. So technology and economic partnership will dominate Prime Minister Modi's visit to Japan, and this will set the tone before the SCO summit here in Tianjin. And what are India's objectives for the SCO? Well, the focus will be on what India calls the three evils: terrorism, separatism, and extremism. The Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement earlier this week. It said that India is working with other SCO members. It wants to ensure a strong condemnation of terrorism, including cross-border terrorism. I must mention here that Pakistan is also a member of the SCO, which makes India's task both significant and challenging. And it has assumed urgency after Operation Sindoor. This operation was India's response to the Pahalgam terror attack. The attackers belong to the Resistance Front, TRF. It's a proxy group of the Pakistani terror outfit Lashkar-e-Toiba. India went after them. It struck multiple terror camps deep inside Pakistan, including the Lashkar headquarters at Muridke and the Jaish-e-Mohammed facilities in Bahawalpur. These strikes took place in the month of May, and in June, they were discussed in a meeting of the SCO defense ministers. A joint statement followed, but India did not sign it because New Delhi wanted tougher language on the issue of terrorism. It was a call that did not find support, so expect Prime Minister Modi to make a fresh pitch on this front. And beyond the call for combating terror, diplomacy will also be on full display. Prime Minister Modi will meet Xi Jinping separately, also with Russian President Vladimir Putin. They'll both be here. He is expected to hold bilateral meetings with both the leaders of Russia and China on the sidelines. Trade and energy could dominate those discussions, and these talks will be closely watched because of India's balancing act. India has stood firm against tariffs from Washington, a position that has been well received both here in China and in Russia. So expect clear outcomes on three fronts: building consensus against terror, securing India's economic interests, and projecting India as an independent power center. And these are not just talking points. These are India's priorities. For Prime Minister Modi, the SCO summit is more than a routine multilateral meet. It is an opportunity to press India's stand on terrorism, to deal directly with China and Russia, and to signal to the world that India will not compromise on strategic autonomy. Now let's talk about the war in Ukraine. The peace talks and meetings are yet to deliver peace. The fighting on the ground is getting worse. And in the middle of all of this, Ukraine is opening an auction. An auction for one of Europe's biggest lithium deposits. Ukraine has launched a tender for the Dobra lithium site. It is located in central Ukraine. The government is not just looking for someone to dig. It wants to partner with someone. It wants a partner to build factories and create jobs. Basically, a whole value chain inside Ukraine. Of course, it won't be easy. Not only because of the military war, but also because of a legal war over this site. A company called European Lithium says that the site already belongs to them. And this claim, by the way, is backed by Ukrainian courts, but Kiev is brushing off all of that. It is moving forward with the auction anyway. And this lithium tender is linked to that. It basically says that US companies get dibs on mining projects, the profits cycle back into Ukraine, and any weapon that the US sends counts as investment. You could say the deal is peak Trump. It turns war aid into a business transaction. But why is Trump so keen on it? Why does he want to mine a war zone? Because he needs lithium. You see, most of the world's lithium is processed by China. It is the future of electric cars and green energy. You need it for building every modern gadget. So while Washington wants the mineral, it doesn't want to depend on Beijing's supply chains. And this is where Ukraine's Dobra deposit comes in. It's a way to cut China out of the critical minerals market. And that is why a US-backed company has already raised its hand to bid. And while Ukraine auctions lithium, Europe's political class is holding a different kind of tender. This one in Moldova. French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, they've all flown to Moldova. They went there for Moldova's Independence Day, but it was also about Russia. To understand why, let's pull up the map. Look at where Moldova is located. It is wedged between Ukraine and Romania. Currently, Moldova's president is a woman called Maia Sandu. She is Western educated and staunchly pro-EU. She has staked her career on bringing Moldova into the European family.
Let me say it clearly. There is no alternative to Europe. Without the EU, Moldova remains stuck in the past. We feel it with every bomb dropped on our neighbor. The cruel war waged by Russia against Ukraine shows us daily. Europe means liberty and peace. Putin's Russia means war and death.
But right now, elections are looming in the country and pro-Russian parties are making gains. Moscow is accused of pouring money and disinformation into the campaign. And here's a twist that makes Moldova particularly vulnerable. Transnistria. It's a thin strip of territory along Moldova's eastern border. Transnistria is a breakaway state, but internationally recognized as part of Moldova. Pro-Moscow separatists run the show here. Russian troops are stationed here. So think of it as a powder keg, a region that could destabilize the whole country, all of Moldova, if Moscow decides to push. Which is why the European cavalry showed up literally on Moldova's Independence Day just to signal that we have your back. Because if pro-Russian parties win, it hands Putin a symbolic victory. Moldova wants to join the EU. Sandu wants to make EU membership irreversible. And Macron and Merz have promised that the door is open.
Our common goal is Moldova's accession to the European Union. You belong to the European family.
Viitorul Moldovei este în Uniunea Europeană. Europa este un proiect de pace, iar Moldova este parte din acest proiect. Aveți un drum clar în față, iar noi, polonezii, vă vom fi alături.
Trăiască Moldova în Europa! Trăiască Moldova independentă! Trăiască Europa unită! Merci à tous. Nous sommes là et nous serons là. Vive la Moldavie!
So the stakes could not be higher. And I know it may sound like two different stories, but if you zoom out, you'll see that it all fits a pattern. It's all connected. Ukraine's lithium auction is about tying the US into the war effort for the long haul. Moldova's EU charm offensive is about standing up to Moscow, showing that Ukraine's neighbors won't drift back into the Kremlin sphere. And these are both reminders that the Ukraine war is being fought not only in the trenches, but also in trade deals and ballot boxes. Lithium and EU membership may not exactly sound like frontline issues, but in today's Europe, they are. Greenland, the vast frozen landscape, is back in the global spotlight. This island is an autonomous territory of Denmark, and apparently it is seeing some unusual American activity which has left the Danes demanding answers. Denmark has summoned the top US diplomat in Copenhagen, the head of the US embassy in the Danish capital, and the charge is serious: covert influence operations by the US in Greenland. This is what a recent report has said. It was published by Denmark's main public broadcaster, the Danish Broadcasting Corporation. It said that 3 Americans with ties to Trump have been running covert operations on the island. The report does not identify these men, but it says that one of them was drawing up lists of Greenlanders to recruit people who can sow division. The other 2 men were allegedly trying to build a network, forming ties with politicians and business leaders. According to the report, the 3 men traveled back and forth. They gathered information in Greenland, cultivated contacts, and relayed the information to Washington. As soon as the report came out, the Danish fury knew no bounds. Their foreign ministry called it, and I'm quoting, unacceptable. Within hours, they summoned the US envoy. They held a meeting, or what they called a preventive conversation. And how has Washington responded to this? As usual, with nonchalance. The State Department has confirmed the meeting. They call it a productive conversation. But they have not confirmed the influence campaign. Instead, a White House official said the Danes need to calm down. Now, have you ever asked anyone to calm down? If yes, you know what happens next. It makes things worse, way worse. And when it comes to Denmark's Trump problem, things have already been spiraling for a while. Greenland has a population of fewer than 60,000 people. It is a huge piece of land located mostly in the Arctic, and it is strategically important. It is loaded with resources, including critical minerals, and Donald Trump wants the island. He has been pushing this idea for years. First, he offered to buy the island from Denmark. That did not work. Then he threatened to acquire it. Earlier this year, he said that it will happen one way or the other. Those were his words. He refused to rule out using military force for this. But the Danes have repeatedly rejected him, sometimes with harsh words and sometimes with satire, by offering to buy California instead for its good weather and, of course, the tech bros. But Trump has refused to budge. So in recent months, the US has pushed for influence, quietly. In January, Trump's oldest son visited Greenland, apparently to rally support. It did not work out. A few weeks later, US business leaders started showing up. People who are part of Trump's circle. And they did everything from starting small non-profits to signing mineral and energy deals, all to advance US ties with Greenland. And a few months ago, another story broke. It said that US intelligence was acting up, that it was gathering information in Greenland. So the Danes summoned a US envoy, and now the new report is out, things are flaring up again, and Copenhagen has summoned a US diplomat again. All because Trump wants the US to quote-unquote get Greenland. Like I said, things have been spiraling for a while, but amid this, one thing has remained constant. Greenland does not want to be got. It does not want to join the US. According to recent polls, Greenlanders have rejected American advances, plus Denmark has made it quite clear again and again that Greenland is not for sale. Yet the flurry of attention refuses to die, from quiet diplomacy to overt pressure, from business deals to alleged covert campaigns. The US just won't let go. Now let's shift our attention to France. Its economy is in turmoil, debt is mounting, budget deficit has ballooned, and soon it may not have a government again. Prime Minister François Bayrou has called for a confidence vote. It will be held on September 8th in the Parliament. This comes after the Prime Minister suggested a highly controversial budget plan. It sparked a public uproar, and now opposition parties have pledged to bring the government down. So France stands on the brink of another political crisis, the second one in less than a year. Remember, their last Prime Minister was also toppled over budget disagreements, and that too after just 3 months in office. So does the same fate await Bayrou? And what does this mean for France and its economy? Here's a report.
France may be a European cornerstone economy, but it is quickly becoming one of its weakest links. It is unraveling. France's debt and deficit have ballooned to one of highest levels in the continent. And while its president, Emmanuel Macron, who sits next to Donald Trump, playing a world diplomat, the financial situation back home is in turmoil, and now it is being pushed to the brink. Earlier this week, Prime Minister François Bayrou made a shock announcement. He called for a vote of confidence in the Parliament.
For me, this clarification is urgent, and there is a place, an institution for this clarification, which is the Parliament, in an orderly debate followed by a vote, and not in the confrontation of the streets and through insults. This is the reason why I have asked the President, and he accepted to summon the Parliament in an extraordinary session on Monday, September 8th.
This has sparked fears of another political crisis in the country. The second one in less than a year. In June last year, President Emmanuel Macron spurred a hasty parliamentary dissolution. Then the first post-dissolution Prime Minister, Michel Barnier, hung on until December. He was toppled over budget disagreements within 3 months, and now the same fate seems to lie ahead for his replacement, who has decided to make the parliamentary gamble.
The Constitution is extremely simple. There will be a general declaration of policies, a vote if you have a majority, then the government is confirmed, and if you don't have a majority, the government falls.
and the fall seems highly likely. Since Macron called the snap election last year, the French parliament has been divided between three groups. A left alliance with the largest number of seats, Macron's centrist grouping with a smaller presence, and the far-right National Rally. None of the three have absolute majority. Amid these deep political divisions, there is an unpopular debt reduction plan, and it sits at the heart of the crisis. Centrist leader Bayrou wants a $51 billion budget squeeze to reduce the French debt. This includes scrapping 2 public holidays, freezing welfare spending and tax brackets. People are concerned. They think that the budget is unfair. This has sparked protests in the country and made Bayrou the least popular French prime minister since 1958. Despite nationwide fury, the prime minister has remained undeterred. He says, "I will fight like a dog." If he wins the vote, it will be just as spectacular as it will be surprising, because it is highly likely that he will lose. This week, opposition parties on the left and far right have doubled down on threats to topple the government. And if he is ejected after less than 9 months in office, it would weigh heavily on the French economy, which is already weak, given the growth forecast of just 0.8% this year. And in all likelihood, Macron, who has already seen 6 prime ministers during his presidency, would be dragged into the domestic upheaval, hurting his big international moment as he plays a key role in the Ukraine war negotiations. But either way, as France braces itself to plunge back into political crisis, only one thing remains certain: the country's political instability has become its economic liability.
Now let's talk about Nvidia. Last month, it became the first company to hit a $4 trillion valuation. Larger than Apple, larger than Microsoft, larger than GDPs of entire nations. And this week, it crushed Wall Street's expectations again. Nvidia posted $46.7 billion in revenue for the second quarter. $46.7 billion, a 56% rise from the same period last year. It beat all earning forecasts. It beat all revenue forecasts. Its AI chips remain the gold standard. There's also an upcoming Blackwell line, that is Nvidia's latest AI technology. So Wall Street should have been very happy. Yet, the stock plunged. It fell around 3% in after-hours trading. And there's a good reason for that. You see, Nvidia is at the absolute center of the AI revolution. Its chips are the backbone of modern AI infrastructure. Meta, OpenAI, Amazon, Google, they all burn billions on Nvidia hardware. AI spending from major firms has hit around $600 billion per year. $600 billion a year. That's like the GDP of Sweden. Yet there is one haunting question. Are we in an AI bubble? And it's a question that Nvidia must look at seriously. Its data center revenue surged to $41.1 billion, yet it was slightly under expectations. And this small miss sent analysts spiraling. It shows you how Nvidia is now priced for perfection. Anything less rattles nerves.
I hate even saying, oh, it was disappointing in any way. This is the most amazing growth company we see in technology and in the world today. So, but still just fell just a smidge short of investor expectations.
And not just that, Nvidia has a lot to worry about. Despite its US roots, the company's largest untapped market is China. It is worth an estimated $50 billion annually, and Nvidia wants in on the Chinese market.
I hope to have a great future here. Nvidia has been coming to China for 30 years. You know, as you know, China is the second largest technology market in the world, and it is also growing very quickly. And so this is a very important market. There's a lot of very dynamic and innovative customers. If you want to be a good supplier, a good company, you have to have excellent customers as well as excellent products.
So what's the problem? Well, Washington wants out. Under US President Biden, AI chip exports to China were heavily restricted. Now Trump has eased them, but there are strings attached. There's a chip built specifically for the Chinese market. It's called the H20 chip. The US is now allowing its sale to China, but in exchange, the US government will take 15% of Nvidia's China revenue. It's a kind of geopolitical toll booth. The permission to sell has come, but as of now, no H-20s have been shipped to China, and none of that revenue was baked into the company's projections, which means Wall Street still sees risk. If China does not buy, or if Trump changes his mind again, Nvidia's growth could stall. And amid all of this, there's another announcement. During a cabinet meeting, Trump unveiled a surprise. Meta plans to spend $50 billion on a massive AI data center. It's part of Meta's new Superintelligence Labs, a moonshot effort to leapfrog the AI race. But here's the thing. All that hardware, it will probably run on Nvidia chips. So even as the AI bubble debate rages on, the money is still pouring in. Clearly, it's a paradox. So I come back to the question, then why did the stock fall? In simplest terms, Nvidia delivered greatness, but Wall Street was expecting divinity. In a market price for perfection, even a good tier quarter can feel like a mortal one. But don't mistake the wobble for a warning bell. In the long race to build the future of AI, Nvidia is not slowing down, neither is Mark Zuckerberg or Donald Trump or any of these players. So the AI boom is not over yet. At the same time, the markets are poised for a bubble. You've heard of Israel's Iron Dome, but now Turkey has a steel dome. It is an integrated air defense system worth $460 million. It has 47 vehicles, including radar systems, anti-aircraft batteries, and electronic warfare equipment. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has unveiled the steel dome. He's called it a watershed moment for the country. But why now? And what does this mean for Turkish defense capabilities? Also, how is the steel dome different from the Iron Dome? Our next report tells you.
Turkey has unveiled what's being called the Steel Dome. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has formally inaugurated it. Erdogan's government announced its development in August last year. Now, after months of intense buzz around the subject, the dome has finally made an appearance. So what is the Steel Dome? It is an integrated air defense system worth $460 million. It combines sea-based and land-based air defense platforms, as well as sensors, into a network that can protect Turkey's skies. It consists of 47 vehicles, including a combination of radar systems, anti-aircraft batteries, electronic warfare equipment, and supporting platforms. Turkey currently operates a multi-layered air defense network. It combines short-range missiles for low-altitude threats with long-range interceptors capable of engaging targets up to 30 kilometers high. But the Steel Dome is expected to integrate short, medium, and long-range missile systems, with radars, sensors, electronic jammers, and an AI-supported command center to create a shield for full-spectrum protection that can provide real-time threat response. For now, President Erdogan has unveiled the first major batch of the integrated system. It has been developed domestically by Turkish firms, which makes this Turkey's first domestically produced short-range, low-altitude air defense system. But the entire dome is expected to be fully operational in the 2030s. Erdogan says that the Steel Dome would inspire confidence in our friends and fear in our enemies, adding that no country that cannot develop its own radar and air defense system can look to its future with confidence in the face of current security challenges, especially in our region. After all, West Asia has been on edge for months now, with conflicts in Syria, Gaza, Iran, and tensions brewing in the wider region. So Ankara has repeatedly spoken about the heightened need to develop better air defenses, especially after its jet setback. In 2019, Turkey sought to bolster its defenses by acquiring S-400 missile systems from Russia in 2019. But this got it kicked off the US-led F-35 stealth jet program. So the Turkish government has instead focused on investing heavily in its defense industry, while boosting self-reliance. But the question is, can the Steel Dome live up to its expectations? It has long been pitted against Israel's Iron Dome. So which one comes out on top? Israel uses 4 layers of defense. The Iron Dome for short range, David's sling for medium range, Arrow for long-range ballistic missiles, and THAAD for exo-atmospheric threats. By contrast, Turkey's Steel Dome covers short, medium, and long-range engagements. But it cannot intercept long-range ballistic missiles. And the biggest difference is this. The Israeli Iron Dome has been operational since 2011. It is combat-proven, with a reported interception rate of above 90%. While Turkey's system is still under development, it is not battle-hardened. Erdogan calls the Steel Dome a turning point for the country's defense industry. But until it proves its mettle in the trenches, firing shots at prospective enemies might be slightly premature.
Another shooting in America, this time in Minnesota. A gunman opened fire at a church service. Children in their first week of Catholic school were inside. 2 of them are dead. 14 others wounded. 3 elderly parishioners were shot, and then the attacker turned the gun on himself. And this is not a one-off. This is the 44th school shooting in the US this year, 44th. In a country where 125 people are killed by guns every single day, the questions remain: why and when does it end? Here's a report.
The first week of school. It is filled with excitement, curiosity, and new learnings. But for the children at a Catholic school in Minneapolis, it was met with horror, and for some, even death. The attack happened last night, at a church where children were attending a worship service during their first week of school. The attacker fired dozens of shots through the windows using 3 firearms, killing 2 children, aged 8 and 10, and leaving at least 17 people injured, including 14 other children and 3 elderly parishioners. Then the shooter turned the gun on himself and died at the scene of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
We often come to these and say, these unspeakable tragedies, or there's no words for this. There shouldn't be words for these types of incidents because they should not happen. And there's no words that are going to ease the pain of the families today.
The attacker has been identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman. He lived in suburban Minneapolis. His motive is currently unknown. According to the Minneapolis police, the attacker did not have an extensive known criminal history. They say that he acted alone. Meanwhile, the FBI is investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and hate crime targeting Catholics. And here's what they know so far. The attacker had a personal connection to the church. His mother previously worked at the school. She retired in 2021. The police have also found a manifesto. It included some disturbing writings, though the details are not out yet. And the suspect timed to publish it on YouTube at the time of the shooting. The FBI has taken it down. Minnesota is shaken and grieving. People have gathered for candlelight vigils. But the anger is palpable.
And what I feel right now is a city that stands up for one another, that does the right thing by their community, and that recognizes that right now, while thoughts and prayers are great, they are not adequate. These children were literally praying at this moment.
But my thoughts and what I'm thinking about is a national ban on assault rifles. My prayer is a national ban on these assault rifles. And you should know that when we used to ban them assault rifles, we used to keep a lot more people alive than we do now. We need to think and pray about banning these weapons of war.
After all, this is not an isolated case. This is the 44th school shooting of the year in the US, a country where 125 people are killed by guns every single day. When gun violence happens in a place that is supposed to be safe, such as a school or a church, it rattles the nation. But as the country braves one tragedy after another, fueled by gun laws framed to breed the violence, It is the innocent lives that continue to pay the price for this political apathy.
And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. Indian Army helicopters perform a daredevil rescue during Punjab floods. Israelis protest outside Prime Minister Netanyahu's residence demanding an end to the Gaza war. And a replica of a 1,000-year-old Viking ship sails by central London. Finally, we're taking you back in history on this day in 1963. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his iconic speech, "I Have a Dream." He was one of the most prominent leaders of the civil rights movement in the United States. In this speech, he said he imagined a future without racism. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
When you made the decision